Thank you so much for making connections with each other. We really appreciate all that you do, who you are and who you represent, and thank you for being here for our kids. If you don't know me, we do have some visitors in the room. My name is Paula No. I'm the very proud principal of Maplewood Elementary. I do have some quick announcements in case you need to scoot out early. If you just need to take a break, we do have the library that is an open space for you. Just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was available. In case you need to leave to get somewhere, please exit through the rear, and then you can exit back out the front, and then just remove your name tag as you go. We really appreciate you, and thank you so much, parents, for pre-registering. That helped us all get the whole family in much quicker this morning. I do have some announcements. I'm going to make most of my announcements at the end. This does serve as my Friday coffee. But just in case, I wanted to make you very aware that we do have a book character parade, huge event here at Maplewood. It happens this Friday at 8 o'clock. Please come and attend. It'll last about 15 minutes. And we'll do it in the cafeteria. So you'll need to badge in and then come in the cafeteria, and then we will parade all of our wonderful kiddos in their book character costumes through this venue for you to see and be a part of. Once again, thank you for bringing your whole self here today. Thank you for being adult peacemakers. And thank you for what you represent. Thank you for how much you love your kids. I'll turn it over to Allie from the district.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Ghilarducci. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement. I'm just going to go over our agenda, the meeting purpose, and some norms, and then I'm going to pass it over to our superintendent to kind of welcome everyone and share a little about the vision. But we've already had our welcome. I'll go over the norms and the purpose. I'll introduce some of the folks that we have here to help answer questions. And then we had some ideas come from your community. I think you all provided us with 3 options you wanted us to consider. So if there are folks here that are wanting to actually kind of orient everyone to those 3 options, we would welcome the PTA to come up and kind of share that. But we have those ready to kind of discuss. We also pulled questions from the comment cards that y'all have done. And so we have some of those pulled and prepared if we want to make sure that we get answers to those common questions that came up through the comment cards. And then we're going to discuss next steps. And so for our meeting norms, we are here to build the future together. And we appreciate, I think, that y'all did this through the proposal that you had, is just acknowledging the challenges of our current situation while focusing on ideas and solutions that will make our district stronger, more equitable, and sustainable for years to come. We want to honor time, so when we do invite folks to ask questions that maybe weren't answered in the comment cards, we ask that people try to limit their comments to about a minute. We have a lot of folks, and we want to create space for everyone. We want to honor the process, so we'd like to try to stay on schedule on the agenda. We want to honor intent and impact, so we may disagree on ideas, but I hope that we can all agree that we're here to focus on our shared goal of having strong schools for every single child in our district. We want to honor space and voice, so if you speak one time, we're going to ask that we make sure that we let others speak before we come back to the same person to speak. We're going to try to solution-oriented, so focusing on ideas and solutions and understanding. And we want to embrace transparency and empathy. We know these are really difficult conversations, and we are here to be transparent, open, and honest with you about kind of the constraints that we face and what ideas we think that we can maybe further explore and what ideas maybe just aren't options. These are our norms in Spanish. And the meeting purpose. So like I said, we want to respond to questions submitted via the comment card and provide opportunities for y'all to have follow-up questions. We want to discuss the ideas that y'all have developed. And then we as an administration want to gain insights that will inform potential refinements to the draft plan before the November 20 vote. Before I hand it over to the superintendent, I just want to let y'all know kind of the staff that's here real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves real quick.
Good morning, everyone. Christine Steenport, Operations Officer.
Hi, good morning. Rachel French, Director of Planning and Project Manager of the Consolidations.
Good morning. Sandra McWilliams, Elementary Executive Director that supports Maplewood.
Good morning. Cherry Lee, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and Health Services.
Good morning. Victoria O'Neill, Executive Director of Campus and Family Engagement.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Reyes, Director of Evaluations for Special Education.
Hi, I'm Marian Maxwell. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Academics.
Good morning. My name is Yvette Cardenas, and I'm the Executive Director of Academic Programs. Pleasure of working with multilingual education and early learning.
And just really quickly want to thank the folks that we have from my team that are recording, our interpreters, so that we can make this meeting accessible to our Spanish-speaking families as well. Go ahead, Superintendent Segura. We're going to let you kind of share a little about the vision.
So thank you, everybody, for showing up this morning. These are difficult conversations, and the worst thing that could happen is for us not to engage, have a deliberation, and talk about kind of what this is, the moment we're in, and what we as a school district are trying to tackle. So I very much appreciate you all showing up. And I also acknowledge just how painful and disruptive this is. Our entire city is going through a transition. Our schools are the foundation of our entire city. I've said that at every step along my journey. I believe it in my heart. Our city can only thrive if there are strong schools in it. With that being said, it's not true that we have strong schools everywhere in Austin. That is not a fact. Right now, we have some schools that have the ability to provide the resources to all of their students and meet their needs, and we have some schools that cannot. This is not a function of our students, it's not a function of our staff, it's a function of our inability as a school district to provide those resources. Right? And this isn't just built up over 144 years. There are things that we have done over the last many, many decades that have led us to this moment. And so as we move forward, one of the things that we have to do is we just have to evolve as a school district. If we want to save who we are as an independent school district and educate in a way that aligns with our values, we just have to change. And so when we took on this effort several months ago, and you think about just the work coming out of the long-range plan, one of the things we talked about is we wanted to have thriving neighborhood schools, right? Schools in your neighborhood so that you, as a family, did not have to go across town to find a school that met your students' needs. Right now, we know that there are lots of families in parts of town that travel very, very far. We know that because of our transfer rates. We know where they live, and we know where they go to school. And so if we're going to move towards having strong neighborhood schools, we need to rethink how we function, how we operate, and also acknowledge that there are lots of pressures hammering down on us. That is a fact. So I think about the moment we're in. I think about the fact that we've had declining enrollment. We live in a city where it's very, very expensive to live. Right? That has pushed out so many families, and we know this. We see it. The city has grown. That's occurred. It's something that certainly we have a role in playing, but we cannot disrupt in a way that would allow families to come back. We're just not here. 2, state of Texas. Y'all know this better than anybody. Not funding public education. In 2023, we were praying, we were hoping that they would fund us. Didn't happen. 2 years later, we get some amount. Ultimately nets out to about $10 million. In our $1 billion operating budget. Doesn't move the needle. Then we think about the changes in the federal government. So the changes in the federal government have impacted us to a degree that is hard to communicate. In the last year alone, we had Title II, Title III, and Title IV funding get frozen essentially overnight. Had over 100 people, I shared this last night, in a room telling them that they're not going to be employed by Austin ISD because the way that you're funded is sourced by Title II, Title III, or Title IV dollars. And those dollars are going away next year. You add on top of that immigration changes and policy changes that have kept immigrant families from coming to Austin. And then those that are here have left. We're down about 2,500 students this year alone. And they're all in one part of town. We know who they are. We know where they went to school. We know their families. And many of them are still here. They're just not comfortable coming to school. And so we're trying to also move through an ever-changing accountability system. Right? In 2022, we had 17 schools that were a B that ultimately were an F the following year. same students, same educators, right? And so as we think about what had to happen, it had to be something that was sizable, significant enough for us to move forward and really change how we operate. So this plan is complex, it's multi-layered, there are lots of things in it, we'll talk about them, but I want you to know that there are 5 really fundamental things that we were trying to address. First is we wanted to align feeder patterns, right? In parts of Austin, you have clean feeder patterns, you know where they are, right? You can have students at Murchison that wear Anderson Trojan hats. 100% of that school goes into Anderson, right? Garitsky, Bowie, O'Henry, Austin High. Where do you not have that? East Austin. You have Dobie going into 3 high schools. You have Martin going into 5. Mendez going into 4. You cannot keep community together if you have that type of fragmented feeder pattern. So we wanted to address that. 2, we had to acknowledge that we are running a budget deficit. We have been, and unless we become more efficient, we're not going to be able to get out of it. And one-time capital injections, selling land or revenue from some donor, that is not sustainable revenue. It isn't. The last thing we want to do is to create a disruption where students are left in a system, and that's precisely what happened when the Title II, Title III, and Title IV dollars were frozen. So we really need to look at our inefficiencies, which included kind of balancing enrollment, which ultimately led to consolidations. A big part of why we're here today. Third thing, we wanted to stabilize our programming. I'm going to talk specifically about wall-to-wall dual language because it's embedded in this specific plan as well as Montessori, but I want to talk about wall-to-wall. So the 4 programs that are part of this plan that are moving, when you look at the emergent bilingual student population that the program was intended to serve, those numbers are moving in the wrong direction. Why is that? Because those families do not live in that neighborhood and they can't access that program. So what do? Provide access. So to improve accessibility, we are moving the programs to where they live. And we're going to make adjustments. We'll talk about what that looks like to ensure that they're invited, they're comfortable, they're welcomed into those school communities. But when you have schools that have 14, 21, 22, and 44% emergent bilingual student populations moving in the wrong direction, you know that if you don't stabilize in the next couple years, when the law takes full effect, and I have to place dual language educators that are certified in classrooms that have the students, those classes and those schools will not have the educators to be sufficient, to be stabilized. Want to tackle that. We also want to tackle our crazy transfer policies that we have. They've been in place for decades. We have majority to minority, we have diversity choice, we have lots of other ones, and we as a school district do not manage it well. They're not managed at the district level, they're managed many times at the local level. And so you see schools tip over where they'll go to 120, 130% because they continue to accept transfers. We really need to take hold of that. And the last thing I'll say is we had to acknowledge that this accountability risk that we're navigating, the fact that 23, 24, and 25 accountability came out back to back to back within 5 months of each other, if we do not break these accountability chains, right, the 3 unacceptable ratings, the 2, we will not be able to move forward. I promise you it is a real risk. We have a sister school district right now that's navigating being taken over by the state. Our same size, almost exactly. And there are decisions I know they wish they would have made 2 or 3 years ago. We are desperately trying to put ourselves in a position, we're desperately trying to put ourselves in a position where that doesn't happen. And that is a risk that we have to navigate. We just have to break them. We have to break those accountability chains. So when it comes to this plan, as you all know, this plan includes having Maplewood wholly go into Campbell Elementary School. We'll talk about the data that was used. We'll talk about how we look at different areas. We talk about the number of seats that we have to pull out of the system. We'll talk about what it's going to look like. I'm sorry? So when we'll get into comments and questions. So, okay. So the plan is for the school as a whole. We'll talk about what issues or what adjustments need to be made going into Campbell. One of the things that we know, and this is where we really have to think through what disruption looks like. We recognize that each community has a different culture, different diversity of students, and so the one thing that we cannot do is take away the ability to plan a thoughtful transition. That has to be part of this work. That has to be. So, so what does this mean? I mean, y'all understand that this means that if you live in the current Maplewood Elementary School attendance boundary, you will move and be reassigned to Campbell Elementary School, right? Starting at the 26-27 school year, so next year.
Matthias, I think
Yeah.
we want to clarify something. So the full population does fit, but I think the second bullet point is something we wanted to touch on because this is what was initially proposed, was that transfers could return to their zone school or apply for a transfer. And with the draft that we're going to release, if you want to share kind of the changes we're doing to that.
So one of the things, thank you, Allie, that we wanted to provide extreme clarity around was where we have scenarios where the transfer policy or the transfer operating procedures weren't clear, we wanted to create clarity. So we made several changes. One of the ones that you're going to see on October 30th, this Friday, is that if you have a student who is transferred into a school like Maplewood, they will 100% be approved to transfer into whatever school that school is moving into, the cohort. All right. So this is one of those things where I want y'all to know, like, this is already disruptive enough. It's painful. But we never wanted to introduce something that created unnecessary disruption. And so this is something we can do. We're committing to it. The numbers work. We also are going to be approving sibling transfers automatically. So this is something you'll see on October 30th. Right now, I will tell you that myself, our board of trustees, none of us ever want a family to go to drop their third grader off and then go drop a kindergarten off for a different school. That's not who we are. We've never wanted that. Now, I understand why the plan and our policies and the way the words are written ultimately got us to that point. But whenever we see those transfers, we approve them immediately. The only time we don't do it if it's an application-based program, like an Ann Richards or a LASA, right? You really need to be applying to get into those schools. So that's why we don't do it for those. But that will also be a change. So we approve them, but it's typically through an appeal process. What we're going to do is say, you know what? Guaranteed. Move forward. We've run the numbers. It works. So that's one of the differences. This slide deck, this work was all based off the October 3rd version of the plan. And I'm very mindful of version control, that I don't make a change here and they don't communicate to some other community. So I really wanted to make sure we kind of held the line, shared with you changes verbally, and then October 30th, when it changes, everybody sees it at one time.
Also, just to clarify, it's the 31st. It's going to be out in the
Friday.
We're going for before noon on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I keep thinking it's 31 days. You want to go to the next slide? Allie, please. You want, Christine, you want to?
Hi, everyone. You've probably seen the boundary map as a part of our first deliverable, but I just wanted to kind of go over that for anybody else that hasn't seen it. So here is the current Maplewood boundary. So live in this area. This is zoned to Maplewood. And so because this zone is closing, proposed to close, if you can go to the next slide, this whole boundary would just move and shift straight to the Campbell boundary. So just kind of wanted to showcase that. We have a little portion here we call feathering to make sure that we can make a little bit fit. And we've got this that is going to be zoned to Blackshear to make them a little bit more whole and healthy in that as well. Oh, excuse me, Blackshear to Campbell. And also here, Blackshear to Campbell as well. So that was just, thank you. That coffee is not kicked in. So yes, and so that's what that looks like right here, and the bit of the feathering.
Okay, so we just wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of oriented to what was initially proposed. And so I want to kind of put it to y'all because we have two options in terms of how we spend the rest of our time. We did, like I said, prepare some of those frequently asked questions that came up in the comment cards so we can jump into that and start kind of going over that. Or if you prefer, we can just go right into the three options that y'all kind of prepared. I'm going to go show of hands if you want to get to the questions. Okay. Okay, so you'd rather start with the questions, and maybe the options can be part of the discussion as we get into that. That sounds good. Appreciate that, everyone. So getting started, this was one that came from multiple commenters, but why close an A-rated near-capacity neighborhood school like Maplewood? What data and criteria justify this decision?
So one of the things I want to say is we've spent the last couple of years talking about how the accountability system has shifted and changed, and the fact that there are B schools one year and F schools the next year. We talk a lot about the fact that there are lots of schools that have D's and F's assigned to them, not by us, but by the state of Texas, and they have just as many people advocating for their school because they love their school. There are incredible things happening in their school. And so when we started this process, when I tell you we did not start with accountability in mind, that is a fact. That was never the case, because if we did that, we would do the opposite and only consolidate or only close schools that had historically not performed. So that's why we didn't start there. That being said, whenever you have inefficiencies in a school district as large as ours, serving 70,000 students with 116 schools, and if we got to a place where we had high-performing schools everywhere, you would still have that inefficiency. There are school districts right now that are closing high-performing schools everywhere because they're still very inefficient. So I want you to know that it's something that we consider, it's something we talk about, but it's not something that we led with. It's not something that we led with. But that is why we didn't use accountability to drive the decision. There are other schools, as y'all know, in the plan that have performed higher historically, but it wasn't what drove the efficiency conversation. Now, the other alternative is move Campbell into Maplewood, right? Then you think about, okay, well, hang on, let me kind of, I know. So one of the things we don't want to do, we know, is that would introduce historical harm, right? That school, being the culture, the student population, what we know based on the work we've done around equity movement and transition work, is going to be extremely harmful to that community. And so given that this is the thing we're trying to address in this larger area, there aren't lots of options for us. There just isn't. And so that is why that you will see in this plan some adjustments and transitions around schools that have historically performed better.
I'm going to allow this person to ask a follow-up.
Hey, thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Hsu. I'm a Maplewood parent here. I'm also a licensed psychologist, and I have my PhD in school psychology. I'm really concerned about a few things related to this. So, what I know, what you all know, and decades of educational research show is that we need, low ratios for math and reading interventionists, for school counselors, for special education support teachers, for LSSPs, for diagnosticians, and that's what leads to academic success for kids, as you all know. So my concern is, with us proposed moving to Campbell, what's going to happen to the Title I funding for Campbell? My understanding is that that's how they fund their interventionists right now. We actually the PTA had to fundraise to have a part-time math interventionist for our school with the intention to bring up more equity in our student body, which we did achieve. We have 122 students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds here at Maplewood. So I'm just really concerned, how is this plan going to prioritize this low student to interventionist ratio across the board for social emotional, for academics, given that's what's evidence-based and needed to improve outcomes for Campbell kids, for Maplewood kids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, so we're in agreement that content interventionist, counselor to student ratio, right now we're running at 1 to 450 in Austin ISD. Really, best practice is 1 to 300. What you all had to do here in raising funds for interventionists is not something that should happen, right? That's the honest truth. And schools that can raise do exactly what Maplewood did. That happens all across the city. But there are lots of schools that can't do that. And so as a system, what we know is that in 2022 and 2023, we had instructional coaches, which really help us focus on first teach, right? Educators coming to the classroom, getting what they need to be academically to be successful. We didn't have them everywhere in Austin ISD. So what we said is, let's use Title I dollars because we had some remaining at the end of the 22 and 23 school year, and let's fully fund instructional coaches in Austin ISD, focusing on Title I schools. That had not happened before in Austin ISD. So we made that change. Then we came back around and said, schools should not have to fundraise to get a content interventionist, because that helps us with interventions, right? To get students back on grade level. You said that. That's what we agree as well. But but we didn't have that. In 2022, 23, we didn't have that anywhere in Austin ISD. Do you know that? We did not have that anywhere. I had schools like asking, Matthias, can we trade a librarian for an instructional coach or a content interventionist? Can I trade assistant principal for these other allocations? It should not be that way. You should not have to trade staff to get what you need for your students to be successful. So I appreciate that question. So that comes down to, you mentioned funding, Title I funding, and the way that works. So in Austin ISD, Title I funding, the way that it's currently distributed to the district is based on the number of students who are identified as economically disadvantaged. In Austin ISD, 7-8 years ago, we were at 63%. We are struggling right now to stay above 50%. Right? We are quickly going to become a school district that has the minority population be identified as economically disadvantaged. That is very, very unique to urban school districts. Most urban school districts, as I'm sure you know, are 80, 85, 90% economically disadvantaged. So what that means is that your Title I dollars are going down, right? That is happening. Every single year, we have lost more and more Title I dollars. When you tie that to the fact that the federal government is going to move away from Title I grants and go to block funding, that number is going to go even further down. And so we as a school district have to figure out, how do we find the funds within our existing system based on stable revenue to ensure that every school gets what they need, right? Instructional coaches, content interventionists, the counselor to student ratio, whatever is required for that school, for those students. So So we have staffing plans and ratios in our in attachment, I think 11 or 9 of the October 3rd. And what we talk about in there is what it's going to look like at our schools, specifically those that have turnaround plans, because those are the ones that have the highest need. Just, that's just honest truth. 2, where we have large program moves, and then 3, where we have moves like this. So we want to get to a place where we can offer those types of ratios everywhere, but the reality is they're not going to be everywhere. Now, because the student population, they're not now, but that's the whole thing, is I don't have the resources to do it. I just don't.
Matthias, can I interject real quick?
Yeah,
So I
go
want to
ahead.
just make sure everyone understands you started talking about how the title funding works.
Yep.
So the title funding comes to the district based on the percent of students that we have that are economic. We as a district get to decide then how to allocate those. So each year we establish what's going to be that threshold that a campus needs to meet in terms of their economically disadvantaged population to be granted some of a portion of those funds. Last year, the number was at 50%. We used to actually be able to keep that number lower because we had more title funds. So I think when I started maybe 7-8 years ago, it was at 40, you only needed 40% to be getting it. And so every year we have to make that calculation. If you lower the percent threshold, then each campus gets fewer dollars, right? If you raise the threshold, fewer campuses get more of those title dollars. But one thing I've talked to Christy Fox, she's manages our state and federal grants, is that we'll have to go through that process this year, just like we do every year. But then looking at specifically special situations where you have a campus that was almost completely economically disadvantaged population, but now if the combined population isn't, how do we make sure that those supports don't just get erased? And so again, we get to decide how we allocate those title funds, and we already have an eye on specifically those situations where the population might bring them below the threshold, but that we still are going to say, you know what, we're going to make sure that they get those allocations. Yes, yes. It is absolutely a commitment that we will look at it. So can I clarify? So every school, like our superintendent said, that has a TAP is already going to be allocated extra resources. So some of them are going to get that on top of it, right? And so if they're already getting that, that's going to say, okay, they're getting this extra 800,000. That means that we can maybe lower the amount of title that kind of lowering that threshold so that we can make special accommodations for these types of scenarios. So I can promise you that it will be a conversation. I'm not the person that can promise you that what decision will be made, but I can assure you that extra allocations would be given to make sure that the need is met. And
Yeah,
I think you could speak more to that.
Well, I think your question is one that I think is an important one, and that is the way that we get at that staffing allocations plan is to understand what is going to happen. That's why in our staffing plan there are 5 different scenarios, and each one of them has their own plan. And we will not arrive at that plan until our principals are together, until our staff are working through it, till we have other people in the room. If I just came and said it's going to be this, this, or this, that is not necessarily going to meet the needs of that community. We know that. And so we're kind of in this weird spot where I've committed to going through the work. We're committed to having unique plans for each move, but the details of those plans are not going to be set until y'all's voice, principal voice, is included in that process. That's just how we operate. I just want you to know that's how, if we came here and said this is the plan, it wouldn't work either. So that's why we go through that process.
Okay, I see 3 hands up. I'm going to take these 3 questions, and then we're going to go to the next comment card question.
Hi, Tracy Dunlap. I'm a teacher here, pre-K teacher and a leader with Education Austin. We've met Superintendent Segura. And I want to ask a follow-up question about staffing allocations. First of all, I want to start off by saying having a meeting at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday disenfranchises staff from being able to participate in this process. Okay, this was, the communication was that this was for staff and community, but at 8 o'clock in the morning, most staff are in their classrooms serving our students. So, well, it disenfranchises some parents that have to work as well, but focusing on staff here, I have not yet heard a commitment that all staff will be able to move. So here's the thing. I keep hearing that a school is more than a building. Okay, I agree with that. But a big part of what a school is the staff that take care of the kids. And there won't be room at the consolidated campus for everybody from Campbell and everybody from Maplewood to all stay together with our community. And I'm mostly concerned, I have a contract as a teacher. And whether it's at Campbell or somewhere else, if I want to stay in AISD, I feel pretty confident that I'll have a job. But we have classified employees here that have been working here for 25 or 30 years. And what happens to our custodians, our cafeteria workers, to be told 2 years from retirement, after 25 years of service at a campus, that you can't move with your school community and you maybe don't even have a job, is devastating. So I'm looking for a guarantee that anybody from this campus who works here, who wants to go to Campbell, has that place.
So the last half of that question, where you said that classified staff are worried about not having a job, I've been very clear the entire time. Educators, professionals, classified staff, custodial staff, food service staff, these individuals are in many ways like the foundation of our system. They really are. You know that about me. I get frustrated when I hear that that's not a group of people that we care about or supporting. We are very much thinking about them. And I've said that. They will have a job in Austin ISD. As I've said, so I cannot guarantee. That's what you're asking for. I can't guarantee. And I appreciate that. But that's not, I can't guarantee that, because at the end of the day, look at the student-teacher ratio. When you have a combined student group, there's going to be some adjustment. There just is. And I don't want to sit here and guarantee something. Now, our intent is have everybody that we can work and get into the new school together. We want familiar faces. That is how this plan can be successful. I'm not going to go and we're not going to hire anybody outside of these communities. That's not going to happen. This community's first. We work through a plan. We figure out how to get everybody over, given the student population, the allocations, but I can't guarantee that we'll have 6 custodial staff when in every other school at that size we'll have 3 or 4. Like that's just not a guarantee I can give you. But I can guarantee that they'll have a job. I can guarantee you that they'll give us input in what they want next in their future at Austin ISD. And I can guarantee you that with that information, we will ensure that it matches as best as we can. And we've said that every single time. That is how it has to work. There's no way I could guarantee that every single person in both schools would remain. I mean, that's. So 2 principals. I mean, 4. I mean, that's not. So the principal. So that's one of the efficiencies. So that's the honest truth. So when you think about how principals, administrative staff are allocated within Austin ISD, you have a principal for 150 kids, 200 kids, 240 kids, 500 kids, 600 kids. One principal. Like that's the same, right? And so no, but I'm just telling you, going like administrative staff, that's front office staff as well, right? They get asked about all the time. One of the things that we're trying to do is become more efficient, to reduce cost. So how we're trying to reduce cost. And
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring us, because we had said that we'd let 2 other people go, and then I'm going to take a question from the comment card, and then I see you have your hand up. And I'll take the gentleman in the back next, and that's about all I can keep in my brain.
Hi, my name is Carla. I have a kindergartner and a second grader here. And to piggyback onto Ms. Dunlap's question, you're telling us that our staff will not be whole and move over if we consolidate with Campbell. You have also said that the district will appoint the new principal in December. The new principal has a say in the staff it takes over. Looking at a timeline, that likely won't happen until Q1, January, February, March. You're also asking us as Maplewood community to enroll in AISD at that same period. Talking to all of my friends, I know 100% for a fact, many people are already looking outside of this district, looking at charters, looking at private. I also know that AISD is having a problem with attrition. We are losing students left and right. Losing students from an A campus with a dedicated staff, and TEA just said we're number 4 elementary school in Texas. Losing this community, sorry, by academic growth standards, losing this community and having us sign up elsewhere out of it because we won't know what we're signing up for when you're expecting us to sign up is a huge disservice. And also, Matthias, I was at your meeting for East Austin Schools last night. You consistently said, we want to protect brown and black students. Combining Maplewood with Campbell, a historically black campus, is not supporting that argument.
So the first thing is I am very aware that the type of harm that can be introduced if we don't go through a process that transitions Campbell, period. The reality is Campbell is very, very small, very small. There are lots of empty seats in this area. And so to address this solution as a whole, something has to move. And as I said before, if we went a different way and took Campbell and moved them into Maplewood, how much of their culture would be preserved? If you distribute, can I?
Folks, can we let him complete a thought, and then if there's follow-up questions, I'm happy to come back around.
So, or you distribute, right? You break the school up. Some students go north, some students go east. Blackshear is already receiving students. There's not a lot of opportunity to ensure that community stays together. If we go through with this solution, with enough planning time, then we have a better chance of doing it than what potentially could be a more disruptive way, which I just described. There are lots of options here. So the other thing I'll say is the question. I understand that. The comment or the question around ultimately that was earlier around staff participating, you being a staff person. We were very clear, and you will see meetings, I'm not sure if one has occurred already, with just staff. So when we have these meetings, we really try to follow the lead of the community, kind of what works best. No time is ever going to be perfect, so I apologize that it's at 8 a.m. That's not, I'm trying to make this work. I will show up wherever you want me to show up. That's the honest truth. We are going to have additional meetings with staff so we can hear staff voice and make sure that it is clear we have that dialogue and support them through this process. So I just want you to know that if it hasn't happened, it will happen. We're going through just like we're having these meetings. I'm happy to look at alternatives, refinements. The one thing that you said that I want to talk about is hiring of the principal, right? So in the milestone schedule I shared with trustees several weeks ago was that in December we want to make sure that we identify who the principal is. And we wanted to do that so that we had enough of a runway to have that principal work with the schools, begin to go through the staffing process, so earlier in the process our families would know. If I wait till even January, right, I lose about 4 to 5 weeks in a 12-week registration process. And so it does, even delaying it weeks really harms our ability to support any family transition. We don't want families to leave Austin ISD. We absolutely don't. But right now, I don't have the ability to fund us and stay whole and solvent for years to come. I just don't. And so that puts us in a very difficult spot. But that's why we have these timelines set. There's going to be dialogue with our trustees this evening in a work session. We'll refine, we'll improve. This feedback is also very helpful. I'm excited to see what plans that y'all maybe brought forward. But that's why we wanted those timelines to be done that way.
Real quick, and I'm going to let you follow up, but we also do have a little bit more detail. We're trying to figure out the timeline of the enrollment cycles. We're kind of changing the rounds that we've historically done. So if you'd like, we can kind of talk a little bit about that. Did you want to ask your follow-up first? Or okay.
I just feel like that didn't address my question. So like you're saying here, you're going to select a principal. Then you can't select the staff until after that. So it's going to be January. So I appreciate your answers, but I feel like it didn't address our confidence in re-enrolling in AISD moving forward.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about the timeline for enrollment.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Previously, I introduced myself as the Executive Director of Campus Engagement and Campus and Family Engagement, but that means I have the pleasure of serving the enrollment, parent support, and engagement teams, along with student attendance. And so we are working through the transition planning, and there are several changes to the system. And so the first thing to know is that you will have from approximately, not set in stone, mid-February until mid-April to make decisions as a family about where you're going to choose to enroll. So there will be time throughout the process so that things will be more firm, things will be more known, things will be more understood before you are asked to make kind of that final decision. Yeah. So we can't control their timeline, right? And our timeline is constrained by, different factors. So we are getting things moving as early as we can. We know that this year there's going to be a little transition, and then moving forward, there will be permanent timelines that'll be put into place. In general, what we will have moving forward is that the early registration period, the round one, will be for special programs, things that are district-wide type programs. And so no longer will anyone feel like they have to jump on it in November in order to secure a spot. And so round two general registration will start in the second semester. And that will, so that is how we will be able to accommodate everyone. And within the system, every family will still have choices. So you will be able to rank the choices. If you are here at Maplewood and you are zoned to Maplewood, you will be presented with Campbell if everything goes forward as your zoned campus. If you are transferred to Maplewood and you rank Campbell first in your rank of campuses, then that will be automatically granted. However, you're not required to do that as well.
And just to clarify on what you were asking about the timelines, so in light of understanding charter schools' timelines, if you recall when we started the Enroll Austin system, that's when we started introducing the enrollment opening in November. Obviously, the timeline that we're on with this process prevents us from opening that early this year, but moving forward, we would resume that practice of starting in November. Okay, I have you back here. And then I was going to come up to you and the gentleman in the kind of puffer jacket.
Hi, I'm Libby. I have 2 kids here. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to go back because the first question was about academics and why are you closing Maplewood? And we got in a lot of different tangents. And I just am hoping you could say in like one sentence why. Because I heard you say like that's inefficiency. We're efficient. We cost 21% less than the average. You mentioned Campbell and the equity there and the special culture and not wanting to move, data. You mentioned data about not wanting to move underserved kids. We have just as many underserved kids here as at Campbell. And so can you just say in like a sentence, why are you closing this amazing, efficient, A-rated school?
So that's why I'm taking my time. I don't want to.
Matthias, it might be helpful to look at.
Well, no, I'm going to respond.
Okay.
I think it's important to respond. Yes, Maplewood is efficient. There's no doubt. Campbell also is very small. This is 2 of 116 schools that we have. So I don't want to argue that you're not efficient or that you're not doing great things. That's not what we're doing. I am trying desperately to ensure that every school has the ability to get to their students what Maplewood is able to give to their students. And I cannot do that without, I understand this is the challenge I have with 70,000 students. We are running a budget deficit. I do not have the ability to fund everything that we need to ensure that our students get what they need. And given where our schools are, they're fixed. Given where our families live, that's fixed. There are limited opportunities we have within the 116 to improve efficiencies, to find dollars to allocate elsewhere in the district to become the district where every student gets what they need. That's the honest truth. It's not Maplewood specific. We understand how great this community is. I understand that.
So Matthias, I think it would.
Expensive mistake. This will cost you more.
Okay.
I would like to give a little bit more like technical detail to the question that you're asking because I think that you're kind of going like philosophically. If I pulled up this slide because it kind of shows there are many things that, as Matthias started out saying, that we're trying to solve for across the district, right? But there's a lot of vast differences in our city in terms of what when we did that rubric, what the misalignments were, right? And so we have to look at things in regions because we're looking at opportunities of schools that are adjacent to one another, right? We've decided we're not going to be trying to transfer students to school, to pass several schools to get to another school, right? And so this map kind of showed like certain areas we have too many seats, certain areas we have not enough seats. And so you have to really, when we think about what we decided for Maplewood, and I'm going to ask Ms. French to come up and kind of talk specifically about what we looked at, like what are the challenges in this area of all the schools, what are the constraints and things that we needed to solve around, and how it's not like we only looked at this option, right? We looked at all of the different configurations that we could do and landed on this as being the most feasible, that addresses the most issues with the least disruption, which might seem like, you know, difficult to believe, but if you look at some of the other options, it introduces other problems. So I want to ask Ms. French to talk a little bit.
All right, hi, and just gonna stay seated because I'm looking at my computer and if there's follow-up questions. So when closing schools, no one wants to do that. It's terrible. I think we all agree. We don't want to be doing this, but knowing that that is our path forward to get to where we need to be efficiently as a district, that is kind of our starting point, right, and the task at hand. I'm here with you. I get it. I will say, so we had to then look at, okay, how can we make it least disruptive as possible to do this hard thing? And the one thing we could control in some instances, and this is not the case everywhere, but if we had the ability to keep a whole community together, and I hear y'all about staff, and I think we've addressed that, but if the students, we've at least addressed it the best we can today. So keeping students together. If we can do that, we want to do that. And this was an instance where we could. So that is why when we're closing Oak Springs, they are going into Blackshear. There was space for both communities to stay together. That is why when we look at Campbell and Maplewood, both communities can stay together in Campbell's building. We did look at other solutions. We can't fit all of Oak Springs, all of Campbell, all of Blackshear into one building. We can't fit, like we looked at, well, what about Blanton? That's nearby. What can we do there? But that is a large school with a large resident population, and it's a bigger school, and that is just one of the facts that we have in our district and in our building inventory. And then when we look at, you know, further northeast, because we look at everything as a system. We have, you know, Sanchez is a, you know, we have these, that's kind of a separate, I don't want to go into that. We'll talk through that with that community, and we'll talk through the board meeting more tonight. But there's, again, we have modernized buildings throughout the district, and we have a lowered reside population. So we've spent countless hours looking and iterating and trying to find a solution that provided the least amount of impact. And when we had the ability to keep communities together, that is what we prioritized here. And that is what got us to the solution that we're talking through today. So.
I'm happy to do that, and then I do want to make sure that I get to the two people that I said I would call on, so let me go through the next comment card, and then we'll get to people, and I appreciate that. We are breezing through the time. Okay, what happens to Maple, and this I think is going to be for Ms. Cardenas, what happens to Maplewood's dual language program? Will it move intact to Campbell, and how will admission access work? Will siblings continue to have preferred access to the program?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So we heard Mr. Seguda talk a little bit about just where emergent bilingual students live, right, and where our dual language programs are. So dual language, as you know, is a bilingual education model. The intent is to serve emergent bilingual students. In Austin ISD, we want others to participate. So we have locations where students can do that, where we have a mixture of non-emergent bilingual participation and emergent bilingual participation. I know this campus can do hard things. I remember visiting this campus when Principal No was just starting off, and we had lots of conversations. And look at where you are now, right? So I know this campus can do hard things. Thinking about that, we do want to acknowledge that you have a dual language program here. We also want to acknowledge that you have a tiny number of emergent bilinguals participating. You have 14% emergent bilingual participants in your dual language program. But we also want to, the proposal is to move the strand that you have now into Campbell and then start to phase it out, right? Just because there are not enough emergent bilingual students either here at Maplewood or in the Campbell area. But we do respect, right, what you've done with your dual language program, and so that is the direction that we'd like to move in. That means that your current strand would move. We would not be bringing new students into the dual language program. And again, it would just roll up and then roll out. We also want you to know that there are other dual language programs here in the area, right? So you also can, if you want to, apply to Blanton has a dual language program, Harris has a dual language program, Andrews, Sanchez, Pickle. There are other campuses in the area that also have dual language programming.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do one more comment card. And just so you know, we did schedule this till 9:30, so we actually have about a half hour. Yeah, follow up to the dual language question.
I'm curious to know about the staff. How are they going to be incentivized to stay if we're winding down their employment?
In this particular instance, and again, I can't make guarantees, I'm not talent strategy, but in this particular instance, Campbell does not have a dual language program, and you do, and you have the staff right now. So with the program moving, we will need bilingual certified teachers in that program. It will be.
Can you repeat the question, because I don't think that picked up on the mic for the interpretation? The follow-up question?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it will be a phase-out program just simply because there are not enough emergent bilingual students between Maplewood and Campbell. And we really are trying to, again, as Mr. Seguda said, we also need to see, so just so you'll know, just kind of big picture, I wrote this down. Every year, every school district has to submit their number of ESL waivers and bilingual exceptions. What that is those are teachers who are working on their certification but are not yet certified with their ESL or their bilingual. So Austin ISD this year is submitting 438 waivers and exceptions. 161 of those are for bilingual positions. So that means we have that number of classrooms that are being served by teachers that are working towards their certification but do not have their certification right now. So that just kind of puts things in perspective when we look citywide about how much our bilingual certified teachers, right, really need to be in the areas where we have where we have emergent bilingual students for strong programming.
Okay, the next question in the comment card was one with multiple comments, but we've covered already, is that will current Maplewood transfer students and their siblings be automatically accepted? That was not part of the original release draft, but it is something that we are updating to clarify.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It counts for all transfers, even out of district.
Say that question again, the clarification. That would be your option. That would be the family's option. So we would have the students in the question. It was around dual language, and if there was a student who is already, I guess, in pre-K or kindergarten that was in the program, would that apply? If the student is in the school, siblings in the school, third grade, and a student's coming in as a kindergartner, we would automatically approve that transfer. Now, the programming at that school is really a decision for the family. We have families right now that choose to split their students up because one school has a program and the school doesn't. We would not be able to offer necessarily that pathway because by board policy, we have to have 18 emergent bilingual students in the school to actually per grade, to be able to actually allocate the staff. So there's this kind of conflict that we run into, but we would automatically approve the transfer if you choose to go to the new school.
Okay, next question back here.
Hello. Appreciate you guys coming out. I think we need to set a baseline on what this conversation is. So from looking at how you guys are talking about it, and this is labeled as a draft, I think it's become very clear to us here that this is a draft in terms of the details, like the transfer details. This is very clearly not a draft at the base part of what your staff's recommendation is going to be, that Maplewood will be merged with Campbell. Am I correct in that? that's going to be a recommendation, barring something drastic. Staff's recommendation is not going to change that Maplewood is going to be merged into Campbell. Am I correct?
So it'll be my recommendation, so staff's. There are still things that we're going through. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no. I will say that the fact that it's in this plan, the fact that it got to this point, that there is a strong probability, but we're going through it all. I'm getting comments, we're getting feedback, we're going to have a discussion with our trustees. At the end of the day, it comes down to what do you exchange, what objective or what goal do we have as a system that doesn't get met if we don't do this? Or what alternative exists, right? Because we still have empty seats. We still have a budget deficit. We still have lots of things we have to consider. So no, we do have a budget deficit in Austin ISD, and this is in Austin ISD. So yes, there is a budget deficit.
And and we don't need to talk about the budget deficit and where that came from. And that, yes, that's the state's fault. It's not just the state's fault, but we understand that you are under a lot of pressure, and we understand that. But at the same point, if you get yourself in a bigger hole later because of the decisions you make now, that's not going to help either. And we understand. But the basic point is, okay, your recommendation is Maplewood's merging. We can concentrate on talking to the trustees. You're interested in hearing details, and maybe you'll change your mind.
And I'll just clarify, so Matthias mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that we have a board meeting tonight. We actually will be going through all of the themes that we heard in the comment cards and the areas we're looking at different boundaries, these transfer things, and there will be some other discussion, some bigger pieces to the plan that will be under discussion. So that'll be a public discussion this evening.
Hi, Adam Sparks, first grade parent. I'd just like to say, oh, thank you. You look very sharp this morning as well. You look very good, and I appreciate how hard this is to do this. I'd like to get to the specifics of the issue, which is that you're proposing to close this school in a 1-month time period in November. I was last here. Well, I guess you're very good at articulating what the problem is for ASD, but we don't feel confident that this group has the solution because we're a month away, we're a semester away from TA takeover. The finances of the district are taking us to a place where we might not have any money soon. And so the question is not what the problem is. The question is closing this school in a 1-month time frame going to fix that problem? And the answer to Carla's question was, the one sentence was, why? Money. So now let me just back up for a second. I was in this room 6 years ago when the last time that AISD came and proposed this consolidation. And back then it was because these windows weren't good and they said that the ceiling was dripping even though that it wasn't, that we had to be in a modernized building otherwise our students couldn't learn well. But now we're the 4th highest in the state by growth. We're full. We filled the, we didn't want the portables that made our capacity got high and put us on the top of the rubric, but that's something that y'all asked us to fill, and then our principal did that. She filled it, she got the grades up, she did everything that was asked of her. And so the question is, why has there been no conversation in the last 6 years? We've had 6 years to talk about what a Maplewood-Campbell conversation would look like. We've had 0. There are no answers on what academics will be there, what programs will be there, which culture will be there. You talk about wanting to help the students at Campbell. Y'all have not spoken to a single parent at Campbell. Is that true? That is true. And so to say that this is for the students at Campbell, but you haven't engaged them once. They can fill out a comment card. You haven't talked to them. You haven't been there. You haven't worked with our school communities. You haven't done any of the leadership. And so when the trustees are saying that the school district's communication on this plan is a failure, when people around the district, when you have a room like this, and here's the thing that Trustee Boswell said, 72 students leaving the district cost the district $1 million. The thousands of students that have gone to charter and private schools since you last proposed closing this school, millions of dollars. And so the question is, what do we save by closing Maplewood? Why do it in a month? There's no reason. I mean, there's no other way to say that. They haven't done the work. There's no reason to close it in a month. TEA demands something on the 20th. They just want to get the money out for the month. So why do we have to rush this into 1 month? To save how much? We were told here in this room with your director of operations that we would receive a breakdown of how much money closing this campus would receive. We've been told by yourself. The trustees put it in their notes, and not only was that information not given to them, they weren't even responded to. Trustee Hunter was not responded to in her request asking for what was promised to us. So we don't know how much money is going to be saved. It's going to help people in the future. That will all come in the plan eventually once the school is closed. The estimates are around $1 million. And if that is true, that is less than 1/10 of 1% of AISD's operating budget. And so the question is, why must we rush all of our children's future into a 1-month plan that does not have a plan? We saw the plan. It was that one paragraph there. That's all that they've thought about, at least told us about or told either school community about. Why must that happen? For $1 million? That's going to fix AISD? What is the solution? Why is closing this 72 people? I mean, let me just ask, how many people have looked at a charter school or a private school since this plan began? Okay. So is this going to help, or is this actually going to hurt?
I'm just going to go ahead and start because I wanted to share something. We actually did do kind of some research into, do school closures save money? And there are plenty of instances where it doesn't, right? We know that in 2019 when we closed schools, we did save money. And then what we did was we planned with those school communities and we said, what extra investments do they need? And then the pandemic hit, right? And a lot of those savings were eaten up. But it doesn't mean that just because the funds that were freed up were spent doesn't mean that it didn't free up funds to put in other places, right? But what you can see across the board, the kind of consensus is that where the success or failure lies is in the transition, right? Is in supporting families, in getting information to families as quickly as possible about what the programs are. And so with the draft that we're releasing on Friday, we also have started developing a framework for those transition plans. So if anyone's familiar with our CAT process, the campus architectural teams, where we bring community together to talk about planning for a new facility or improvements to a facility, it's going to be a similar model to that where we'll bring teams of folks together from both communities to start going step by step through what are all those considerations. What are the considerations for special education? What are the considerations for outreach, doing block walks, phone banking, meet and greets, all these things that we can begin doing as soon as we know, right? But until we, and in a perfect world, if we had more time, a lot of that work could have started if we but we need to know a direction before we start bringing folks together because of the timeline that we're on. The truth is, in 2022, when we built that bond, it was a 2-year process, and we were at every single school talking about what's working, what's not, and it built one of the most successful bond projects or programs, right? I'm sorry, say that again. Can you?
Put in a timeline of November 20th, but there's nothing needs to happen in our 2 schools. If we did one more year and got it right, and did all that work that you're talking about in the next year, that's 1 year of a little bit excess cash flowing, and then we could do the problem next year.
This is one of the things that we're talking about now, right? With our trustees, I intend to bring it up tomorrow. So the reality is, will the state take over our school district next month? No. I mean, please, that's, no. Are there real risks that we're navigating? Yes. Like that, those are very significant risks. You said about, why weren't you here the last 6 years? If you would have told me in 23 that the state would not allocate any funds, I wouldn't have believed you. In 25, well, I was here in 19. I remember that in 19. But think about what happened since then. Think about the pandemic. Think about the change in the federal government. All these things have compacted, added more pressure to our system. So to your specific question, like does the vote for Maplewood and Campbell have to occur on the same timeline? It is a separate. You have the programmatic moves, you have the TAP moves, and you have the consolidations, which is what this is. They are very different. The one thing that I want to kind of reinforce to our community is that we have to stop going through huge, devastating changes. I also want time for families to plan. I really, really do. And so I don't want to wait till the spring semester to take a vote. That's not the case, right? That's the question. Is the vote next November, or is it you take a vote now and then you don't do the change until the following year, right? So those are two different things.
Right, why not get it all right in the next year and then vote next November? We're not tied to any timeline.
I just want to put something in perspective for you? Let me just put something in perspective. We are represented by people who, there's 7 trustees that represent 7 parts of the district, and then we have 2 at large, right? If we have committed to doing something that is district-wide. I just want you to think about what that feels like to the communities that are on a timeline, right? The turnaround plans, because those do have to be voted on, right? And so if we were to remove, and our trustees have the authority to do, they could do that, right? They could pull out the ones that are not as pressed for time, but which schools would that be? That would be what, Riker Woods, Maplewood? I'm trying to think. Low Valley it's tied to a tap because of wind, right? And so I think you have to understand that what that appears like is that certain school communities are not affected while other ones are affected. And and I think that's a conversation our trustees can have, right?
So it's not, no, so we're providing the financials. We're going to upload another version on the 30th because, yeah, because one of the things that, so there's two competing things here, because there's a comment over here from this gentleman that said, all staff go, right? Well, that's not going to show, obviously, any reduction in cost, and that's not how it would work. So, no, there's no target amount. What it is as a system, we have to find where we're inefficient. There are two schools. It's Campbell and Maplewood. It's not just Maplewood being efficient. It's the fact that we have 140 students at one school. And we have over 20,000 extra seats in Austin ISD. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that is much larger than Moody.
Okay.
It's not seven. The basic student allotment is over $6,000. It's not 70 students.
All right, I'm going to call on 3 more people. I'm going to do a comment card, but I'm going to call on. You'll be after the comment card, then you'll be next, and then I've seen you have your hand back there. So the next comment card, we might have already gone over it. It's about the timeline. That's what we've just been talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to stand just because, you know. So as a parent who had the option, my daughter is a transfer into Maplewood, I had the option of choosing any school in AISD to transfer her to. So that means I had the option to choose to go to Campbell or the option to come to Maplewood. I chose Maplewood because of its higher academic standards. And I knew that it had a track record of high quality education, and that's where I wanted my child to go. So my question, future forward, thinking about should this plan go through, what is your plan to bring Campbell up to the highest academic standard that Maplewood has already proven that it can meet? Because what it looks like, and I'm a lifelong Austinite, my entire life, and it seems as though Campbell has been allowed to languish in lower scores and underperforming systemically, and there's all these code words running around here about systemic harm and that sort of thing, but what's the plan to make sure that if a merger were to take place, that the Campbell students who are there have access to the same high academic standard that has already been set here, and that we don't let any students languish?
Yeah, that's a... Let me answer that first. So the first thing I would say is we're not starting from scratch. Just to be honest, the last 2.5 years, yes, in 2023 you had 30 schools that were failing. 24 you had 29, 25 you have 23. Right? There are so many systems in Austin ISD that were not in place 2.5 years ago. We didn't have aligned curriculum. And that's the honest truth. That is the honest truth. We had different levels of rigor. We had different expectations for black and brown students. It's in the data. We can see this. And so for us as a system, the first thing we needed to do is to figure out, do we have an understanding of where our students are? Are they on grade level or are they not? That's MTSS, Multi-Tier Systems of Support, which we spent the last 18 to 24 months putting into the system, the countless hours of professional development. So now our educators and our principals understand and clearly recognize what students need and when. But we didn't have the resources to deploy. If we have 40% of the student population at a campus needing Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions, we didn't have the curriculum and we didn't have the content interventionists who actually deploy the curriculum and provide the instruction. So now in 2024, we passed the tax rate election, we got those resources in place now. And so we're tracking for the first time, and as far as I can tell, looking back years and years and years, we actually have a school district and not a district of schools. Because what has happened is I'm not going to speak about any specific school, but we did not have the academic focus. Our principals and leaders were not academic leaders. And what was happening was we were asking teachers to go and get professional development, right, over here at central office. And then at some point in the semester, we'd come back and say, hey, how's this going? To go through observations. And what wasn't happening in real time was that coaching, that support. And if a student needed to get on grade level, we didn't have the staff in place or the curriculum in place. So that is all in place now. So as you've seen, and I know that many of you all probably have been tracking our accountability, it is moving. Early literacy numbers are through the roof. Early numeracy numbers are through the roof. We're going in the right direction. I fully expect all of our campuses to have what they need to be academically successful. And here's the other thing. 2 years ago, we implemented a support and resource index, and we said, okay, those schools that have additional needs need to be prioritized in how we hire. They need to be prioritized in the way that we engage, the way that we respond to building operations, tickets. Like everything needs to be prioritized in a way to get them where they need to be, and it's moving. So my expectation is that the rigor will be there. It's already moving, that we have an aligned curriculum, that we're doing things together. We've stabilized so many things across the district. We're 97.5% staff now. Attrition rate between Title I and Title I schools is below 2%. It was 22% 2 years ago. So I feel confident that when we plan together, our students at any school in Austin ISD will have what they need to be successful. And so we're not starting from zero. We've been starting that work, and we talk about it all the time. There's been lots of presentations about it, which is why I feel confident that if we just can keep doing what we are doing, find resources. I did not think we would be here in 23 or in 25, honestly. Nothing shifted, and the pressure only increased. But that's the whole thing, is like we have to do it together. Like the planning, I can tell you the framework. I just shared with you all the things we're doing school by school, the curriculum, all of those things. What you're asking for is what is going to happen when these schools come together specifically, right? That requires the principals, the staff, everybody coming together and planning. That's what's required, which is why we're not going to make a decision in the spring semester.
What experience do you have doing things successfully in the past? Who here, raise your hand if you can put on your LinkedIn profile or resume that you have successfully overseen a school merge of this magnitude. Raise your hand.
I've overseen I've still overseen mergers for sure.
Nobody in this room is raising their hand. There's a lot of faith.
Norman Sims, I don't want to get into that debate. I've overseen mergers for sure in Austin ISD. Norman.
So I just learned that we actually have some representatives from Campbell, so if the folks I've already called on can hold tight, I want to make sure we create space for them.
So I actually want to speak together with Liz. Liz is the PTA president here, and her and I are also friends as well. I'm the PTA president of Campbell. I think a lot of people in this room know my face. I don't know you guys' face because we have not had a meeting with you at our school. Yeah, so I want to give Liz space after myself, but I do want to touch on one thing just because I'm going to always defend Campbell. The last question was about how are we going to hold our students to the standard that they hold Maplewood parents? I can answer that question, and this is the only positive that will come probably from this, is actually our students, our lowest income students, do score higher than most in the district. So that is actually something we're very proud of, and something that actually our lowest income students do score higher than the students here. And our highest students, our students with the highest income also have gifted and talented programs as well. So that just doesn't paint the full picture of our school, which sort of reiterates the point that we don't have enough school, but I'm gonna continue. So when I listened to you speak, you talked about a thoughtful transition, and yet we have not had a meeting at our school with you guys. And as we know, this will affect equity. And so listening to you guys talk about equity without hosting a meeting with the people of color that do attend Campbell schools, it should be borderline embarrassing to use that word. It's almost inappropriate. Our families didn't even know about the consolidation until after the draft plan was started. We know historically Black and brown families tend to be the least considered in these conversations. They take the longest time to mobilize, as low socioeconomic families often do everywhere, not just in AISD. And we all do know that. AISD knows that. They talk a lot about diversity and equity. With that being said, our families didn't know until this plan was already proposed, and then we had a short turnaround time. We did have a meeting with Trustee Hunter. We had a lot of questions. We did get more of a turnout than we would typically get for these things, but I had to hope that I would have the space, and I wanted to give the Maplewood parents the space to speak, but we have not been heard, and it's nice that you guys get to hear me here, but we had to find out through Trustee Hunter that this meeting was even happening. So you talk about pushing out families. 40% of our students transfer in. We've spoken to those families. They transfer in because it is primarily a historically Black school. Those students, when they are outnumbered by white students, we cannot say that they will transfer in, which once again brings back the point of attrition. So planning for attrition of Black and brown families is a wild way to start this. We also talk about transfers. We have asked our trustee to get a guarantee from you that legacy families will also be guaranteed transfers, because that goes beyond siblings. We have alumni that have showed up to all of our meetings. The ones that we didn't see you at. We talk about immigration and our federal government and us not having as many students coming into our schools, but our students actually, a lot of them speak Pasha. So it's not actually, it's not the same English as a second language issues that the other schools face. But with that being said, this dual language program that students are going to be grandfathered into is going to show up at Campbell, and our students won't have access to that. So I'd like that guaranteed as well, that our students will have access to that program. You said that dual language will phase out at Campbell. Is that correct? So that will show up at our school, and our students won't have access to that. So once again, our students are going to lose. And then we were talking about interventionists. If a lot of these families that did raise their hands that can afford charter schools and afford private schools don't attend our school, and we are to lose the funds allocated for interventionists, they were able to raise the funds for their own interventionists. We were provided that through Title I. Once again, now we're running into the issue of how will we afford that? And I know we're supposed to hold on to a promise, but I don't know how trustees can make these decisions without them actually being locked in. Because if those families don't attend and we don't have the funding for it, where are they going to come from? Because our school, scoring the way that it does, is based on these things, and specifically around our culture. We are not an F school. All statistics point to the fact that we should be an F school, given our low income status. And then, I definitely want to iterate the fact that, I can't speak for all of Campbell, though, we have not, as far as PTA, we have the same parents that show up all the time, and we need time to mobilize our communities. And we, again, haven't had a meeting, and I don't think I'm gonna see you guys before Friday at our school, so.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm the PTA co-president here at Maplewood, and Can and I have actually been having a lot of conversations throughout this whole process, because we are very aware of our communities being impacted by this consolidation, and we are having conversations of what that transition plan will look like. We've been having conversations of the negative impact it will have on our communities. And we just want to make sure that as we're recognizing that if this consolidation happens, Campbell's student body and culture will shrink. And the conversation we've been having is that Campbell's belief and frustration is that Campbell will become Maplewood. The campus is going to be brand new for Maplewood as well. So we just want to make sure that there's specific concrete measures in place, and that the district has will be implementing to ensure that the needs of Campbell's current largely economically disadvantaged families are being prioritized and protected throughout this process, including their cultural programs and their Title I status. And additionally, how will the district ensure that Maplewood's academic achievement is maintained, honored, and protected, especially with the staff who have been a very huge part of that. So we have two different goals. We just don't understand how this is going to work. Understand that the funding needs to be there. You guys need to save those dollars. Why couldn't the boundaries go the other way?
Can you explain what you mean by the other way, real quick? Oh, I see. So like, I got it. Yeah. Did we kind of already spoke to that a little bit, or do we want to? Can you speak a little bit to why? So it sounds like the question is, why wouldn't you combine Blackshear and Campbell? Is that, or Oak Springs?
Oh, Oak Springs and no, not you. I think it was Oak Springs to Blackshear is in the current plan. Which I guess when you say the other way, you're saying Oak Springs and Campbell. Is that what you're? Oh, Blackshear and Campbell. Yeah. So there aren't as many as you. I mean, there are lots of there's schools that are around each other, but they don't all fit. And got it. Understood. Yeah. Got it.
So folks, I want to make sure that we kind of yeah. So I want to make sure that we respect, because I think that they had some questions that we still haven't answered, and I want to make sure we address that. I think that possibly Rachel, because y'all submitted, I'm assuming that that plan was part of some of those questions that y'all had about the options that were proposed. So I'll let Rachel maybe talk a little bit about some of the constraints, what is possible, maybe isn't possible. As far as getting to Campbell, like I just will say I do feel disappointed in myself and in the organization that we haven't been able to get there yet, and I appreciate you being here today, and we absolutely are going to make that happen. There are lots of schools that we haven't made it to yet, right? It is not a timeline that I would have picked if I were to say how to get through this in a really perfect, thoughtful way, right? That's just the reality. We haven't gotten to a lot of the campuses that have their programs that are going to be made wall to wall, but we are working through to get there, and we are happy to prioritize making it to Campbell, and we recognize that that is something that needs to happen and we wish could have happened sooner. I don't know who's saying my name.
So.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. So thank you for that. If you've reached out, I apologize if I've missed it. I have been in communication with Ms. Barbara, who coordinated that, and we have had conversations about bringing these communities together. It just hasn't gotten on the calendar yet, but we are going to have those conversations.
Yeah. So
And
go ahead. Sorry, Stacia.
Sorry, I just want to jump in. Hi, I'm Stacia Pascal. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Organizational Effectiveness. I work with Dr. Lewis, and we are part of what's called the Bridge Team. And so our focus has been looking at the humans at the center of this impact. And so we're thinking through and planning and already being responsive in providing support as we are going through this consolidation process. I wanted to speak to what you named. Yes, there has not been a full front district presence, but I have engaged in conversations with Principal Moore. I've also engaged in conversations with alumni members from Campbell. So there is background work that is happening. I've been in conversations with Ms. Barbara Korber-Spears to ensure that I am fully thinking through with my team all of the ways in which we need to be prepared if this vote goes through. So I do want to name that. Those things are not lost on me. We are working together as a team to think through how fear is going to show up and impact the identity of our children. And so I just wanted to name that. The second thing that I wanted to speak to is one of the ways that we are engaging with communities is in smaller pockets. So there is the massive show that's happening. So I didn't speak to parents at Campbell. That's the point. So I went into the adults that are a part of what's happening at Campbell, because what I didn't want to do was to bring everyone into a space, and it didn't happen. So I began in how do we put in the framework that we're building those considerations that might not be a part. And so I just wanted to name that. So how did I what? So one thing that was really important was holding on to the culture that Campbell built through their uniform policy, through the fine arts, and so thinking through what does that mean. So that was one of the pieces that we talked about and looked at. How do we ensure that Campbell's identity doesn't become lost in the merger? So those are things that we have. We've looked at processing circles. We've looked at morning meeting prompts that could be a part of talking through how do students feel and how are they impacted in the possibilities of this change. So those are some examples of how it came into the framework. The other thing I wanted to speak to, with the PTA presidents, we are so grateful that you guys are coming together and having these conversations. And as Allie named, we will improve in how we engage. We have had missteps, right? So we're acknowledging that. I don't want you to think that anyone is being dismissive of the possibilities of harm that could come. So I just wanted to take a moment and say that. I'm gonna pass it back. I appreciate that you didn't growl at me and you gave me some smiles. And I'm just gonna invite us all into like a collective breath, because the passion we have here in the room is because we love our children and we want what's best for our children. And I get that. My why is deeply rooted in my son's experience here in Austin ISD. I wanted him to be able to go to any school and a teacher, a principal, or whomever see him for the potential of what he could be, not a statistic that they thought he was. So I want you to know these things are not lost at all. There are people extremely passionate about ensuring that kids have access to educators who see them and encourage them and push them, even when there are falters in the resources that are available.
Thank you. So we are running out of time, and our superintendent does have another engagement in 30 minutes, and it's about 20 minutes away. I want to just touch on I skipped a few questions that have already been discussed, but this one hasn't come up yet. What is the plan and timeline for closed campuses, including potential sale or repurposing, and will playgrounds stay open to neighborhoods? Okay, move on to that one. Got it. Let's see. All right, that was the last one we had prepared. So, and I had called on you, I know, so I'm going to let you have the last question.
Yeah, there are just a few threads to follow up on. One is, if there is such a concern about preserving the culture of Campbell as well as Maplewood, what about options for citing pre-K at Campbell? What about options for citing the headquarters of creative action at Campbell? It seems like the problem that we have here is an inefficient use of a large building, and because there is an inefficient use of a large building, you have to shut down the 4th highest growing academic school in the state. And it doesn't follow for me. And this is a very, as you said, this is kind of a clean consolidation. I understand some of the other consolidations you're talking about involve multiple schools and a lot of complicated pieces. This is one where you could just take this consolidation off the list, leave everything else the same, keep your same timeline, and just reconsider whether there is a way to utilize the space at Campbell for something that would benefit their community and generate the dollars that we need.
So we do take that approach throughout AISD and other schools as well. I will tell you that there aren't enough partners. There aren't enough. We try to do that. Trust. I appreciate. This is what we've been doing. I've been filling up schools. You can go to many schools and see all the partners that we have. It is not that simple. And at the end of the day, it's not just the operational cost of the building. It's the administrative cost of running two schools that could collectively run together. So it's both. It's not just the water and energy. That's not just that, because that would solve part of it. But we still have tons of space in Austin ISD. It's the other half as well. And so I do hear you. I understand. And I do appreciate the comment.
Exactly. This is a unique situation. This is, in my knowledge, the only situation where you're moving a very large community that has been, accountability ratings are what they are, they're flawed, but has been an extremely successful community in this place. It's walkable. We've presented y'all with a lot of new, data about new developments that are going in that are intended. Our neighborhood associations here work very hard to not be NIMBYs, to have affordable housing go in, and there's tons of development to be happening. If you close this school now and close Campbell now and those developments go in, you may have to reopen one anyway. So what we're talking about is there a way to sort of find a more temporary solution for the use of the building space and preserve the capacity here for the population that continues to grow in this area uniquely compared to the rest of Austin?
And I apologize, I did actually call on one other person, so I'm gonna let you have the last word. I'm sorry, go, did you? I apologize.
I think this is what makes this so hard. No plan is perfect. We're going to have the conversation with trust. I'm sorry. No plan is perfect. And this is unique. I'm going to acknowledge that. It is also one of the only ones we have 3 that are wholly into one school. When we talked about the intent of any disruption, trying to keep communities together was really, really important. I understand the staffing perspective, but we really focus on the student. That's where we start, and then we go from there. But staff is equally important. We just have different ways to solve for that as this entire school district. We're going to have that conversation with our trustees tomorrow about what we do and what timeline we use. Ultimately, what I'm wanting to not do is just assume that no change or nothing will occur at some point in the future. Because we, as a system, there aren't enough partners to fill up all the spaces. I've been doing this. It doesn't exist. We have too many empty seats in Austin ISD, and I have to solve for it. And they're not all in one location. They're spread kind of evenly throughout. And so how do you become more efficient? You have to look at typical things.
The attitude that these will be the recommended schools is confusing to me, because when the rubric came out, we were told it's too soon to talk about closures. You're not on a closure list. We don't need to talk about that yet. But then as soon as the draft came out, we were told it would be unfair to take any school off of this list of 13, and we heard that tonight, or this morning again. It would be unfair, or it would create too much additional work to go back. This is a draft plan, and the most fundamental part of the plan is this list. So can you commit that you will revise the closure list, whether it's Maplewood or other schools? Can you commit that based on feedback you've received and new facts you've gathered, you will revise the list of 13?
So I am going to work with our trustees to consider all of it, because it is all of it. What I didn't want to do is at a school, like what I've gotten into conversations is where with the community, like, well, what about this other school? What about that other school? Like, I do not want to go down that road. So if there is a modification, it's going to be about, okay, well, how do we address this issue, but in what time does it absolutely have to be done? Because it would be unfair, I think, for me to communicate and say this school that has not been talked about, has never been part of this solution, now is going to have a completely different direction with the few days that we have left, right? So that to me would be a different strategy. I want to be really clear. I want to be really. So here's the thing. I want to be really honest about the number of things that we're tackling at the same time. Right? You heard us talk about them. There are different moves that we can make because we're doing all of it together that don't exist if we're doing any one in isolation. Like if we were just doing turnaround plans, it would look very different. If we were just doing consolidations, it would look different. If we were just doing program moves, it would look different. In fact, you'd have more East Austin schools closed perhaps if we weren't tackling all of this together. So I do not want to necessarily make a huge shift. The board will provide that direction and that conversation to me. It is a draft list. It very well could change. It's a draft plan, but I can't commit to saying that something will come off or on until we get through that process. I just can't give you that guarantee.
Okay, and this is going to be the last.
Yes. And the other thing I want to point out, there's a comment you made around the list, the rubric, because I've heard the inverse position as well, where this school was above me on the list. Why aren't they closing above me? And I want to be really clear. Like that was intended to identify where we had misalignments in our system. That was a starting point. It was never going to be the case, And I said that at the time. And I think based on the fact how many of those ultimately were identified for consolidations, kind of just prove like there are huge changes all throughout it, but not all of them are consolidations. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Okay, this is our last comment.
Thank you. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we're running late, so I'm not going to echo what everybody has said, which is we love our school. We're a proven school, being successful. We're a very intentional neighborhood, and somebody that works in low-income housing and homelessness, that is very important to have neighborhoods open up to such housing. My ask for you when you go forward, because you've heard everybody else, is the current plan is based on a one-for-one, right? So you are assuming we're losing the building. We're not. I contend that you are telling us we're going to take Maplewood, right, students, and we're going to move them over. Transfers are going to be honored, and unlike 2019, they're going to get accepted this time. And so our student body community is moving to Campbell. What I don't see in this plan is the real threat of a mass loss of students to AISD. So, for example, I'm a fourth grade parent. I intentionally moved into this neighborhood for Maplewood. And so for us, and I'm a huge supporter of school districts, of public schools. For me, the real question is, my child's gonna go through 3 transitions. 5th grade in Campbell, let's say the plan passes. 5th grade in Campbell, and then 6th grade in Keeling, and then those group of students are gonna get split again into different high schools, right? No longer McCollum in the proposed plan. So for me, the question now, and then this goes a little bit back to your timeline and why we were mentioning charters and private schools, it's a really tough decision to stay with AISD given that my child's gonna get such disruptions, right? At a time where core education needs to be the priority. He is a minority student, so a lot of the things that you're talking about here are directly impacting my kids, and I know I'm not alone, right? Especially not with other 4th grade parents that are gonna have the same transition. Our community as a whole is gonna have another big shift in when they get to high school. And so I think, and my background is not in education, but I do believe that this whole cohort of students are not going to be set up for success when they reach high school, which then will have a tremendous impact of what happens after that. So my question to you is, has this been discussed? And I know there's attrition, people move, there's the regular percentage that school districts lose, but this is one real great number where in mass you could potentially be losing a lot of the savings that you are assuming you're gonna have by closing Maplewood.
Two things, and then I know we'll wrap it up. I'm happy, again, I very much appreciate this conversation. I am trying to get everywhere. I really am. I will get to Campbell. The one thing I will say is regarding student movement, right, and the number of transitions your students going to have to, endure through their academic journey in Austin ISD over 13 or 14 years. That's what we're trying to get away from as a whole system, because right now we have families that have 5 and 6. I mean, there are families that have multiple transitions in Austin ISD now. We're trying to alleviate that and have it be stable for years to come. So yes, right now there's going to be disruption. I'm assuming you're talking about Northeast Early College High School versus McCallum. And so the question I have is, I want families to feel as though Northeast Early College High School is a welcoming, loving school that has the academic rigor so that you are comfortable sending your student there. That's what we need to do as a school system. There shouldn't be a McCallum and a Northeast. Hey, I understand that. There are schools that have different programs in Austin ISD. You have IB at Anderson. You have AP at some schools. You have Eastside Early College. You have early college high school experiences. We academically can make those adjustments, but we don't have the resources to be able to do so. And we are being intentional. We're being forward-facing. So we're looking at those classes and those and the student pathways and ensuring that they're going to be there when your student is there. We're doing that analysis now. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was students leaving. Right, I will always tell a family to do what's best for their student, period. I believe in that. I do think Austin ISD, I do believe in public education. I'm a product of it. My kids come here, I'm all in. The one thing I'll say is, there are lots of families who've chosen to leave Austin ISD because in those parts of the city, they don't have strong neighborhood schools. That's just the honest truth. And we don't have the ability to fund them. There's seven. No.
In the future. So for us, part of what, and Adam, correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here, is the immediate, right? So you are having a subset of students that are going to carry this setback several years, right? And we know, history has shown, once you have begun at a disadvantage, and this is a huge disadvantage, not just the transition, and I'm not talking about the building, right? I'm talking about something that you can't assure us today, and I understand why you can't. You can't assure that you're going to take the staff and the teachers that are in Maplewood that have led us here.
All staff.
Right, you can't take all staff, correct.
I want to be very clear, because people have been saying that back and forth. You said all staff. That was the guarantee I couldn't make.
Right, that's the guarantee you can't make. But as we all know, all staff, and I think one of your members spoke about this, when we had a new principal, there were some growing pains, right? We overcame that, but it took time. And so that's the time that our 4th graders, our 5th graders, they don't have that. And so with us asking for, hey, let's slow down a little bit, we are not, we understand budgetary constraints. We understand where we are, and we need change. I don't think anybody's arguing against change. I think we're arguing against the lack of time and transparency. And so that we would fully support your plan should we have a slower time frame. And people have been throwing around a year, other things. I don't know what the magic number is, but I do know a month is not. And so if we could take this plan that you currently have and do it in phases, or perhaps spend a little bit more time ironing out these things so that we have more time to make the better choice for our students.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and go over the timeline. We've talked a lot about these dates and sometimes said the wrong dates, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. But that board workshop is this evening. You're welcome to tune in. I think it's from 6 to 8, 9, somewhere in there. Then the release of the revised draft will be this Friday, and that revised draft will then again be discussed at the November 6th board meeting, so that's the next Thursday. And then we have our November 20th board voting meeting is when the final plan is anticipated to be voted on. And then of course, as of right now, we're recommending these changes go into effect for the 26-27 school year. I want to thank everyone for your time. I know that Matthias has to get out of here, but a lot of us will probably be able to stay if there's still questions we didn't get to. And we will definitely be in touch with you and making sure that we find time in our schedules. It may not be before this Friday, but we can assure that it will be before the vote, that we can get with your community. So thank you, everyone, and I'm going to give it to Principal No because I think she has some announcement.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Central Office. Thank you, Matthias. Appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Thank you for showing up for your kids. Thank you to our guests, wherever you're from. Thank you for making kids a priority and choosing to spend part of your day and definitely part of your lives. Thank you for your commitment to ensure that these conversations are adult conversations and that we protect our kids and let them be joyful learners in our schools. Both Principal Moore and I are fully committed to joyful teaching and learning every single day. I have visited with him. We're both on board with whatever is passed and approved, and however that we can be a part of setting up this new school if it passes in order for success. And we do both feel that it can be the best of us and the best of them coming together to be the best new situation if that's what we're asked to do. We also believe that a rising tide raises all boats, and that's the mindset that we're in right now. But we do have our eye on the ball, and our eye on the ball is very much what's happening in each of our buildings. So just take heart, if it passes, if it doesn't, that you have principals that 100% love what they do. I know Principal Moore is 100% committed to seeing out his passion in service for public ed and for Campbell Elementary, and I'm 100% fully committed to seeing my Mustangs thrive and accelerate to middle school. It's hard because it means something. So thank you for being real, and thank you for being present. We are going to fully continue to commit to keep loving and teaching here. We will see you someday very, very soon. Maplewood, hopefully at the book character parade on Friday. You know where to reach us. Please love on your teachers, and thank you, Maplewood. I'll let that announce in just a second, but thank you so much again. I don't know if you were a part of my last meeting, but thank you for a commitment to giving our teachers grace and space to be able to process what they need to process as an employee and as a teacher without having to help you process what your family needs to process. So thank you for that commitment for my teachers to be able just to emotionally be present with what they're going through as well. And please send notes of encouragement. There's never a teacher that needs to go longer than a week without a great note of encouragement, the way that they're pouring into your kids. Love you, Maplewood. Thank you again, and I'll turn it over for one quick announcement. And thank you, Central Office. I really appreciate you. I know that your work is still there and that you've chosen to invest in us. Thank you so much. I know that you sometimes feel that that they're not doing enough, but they do so much so that I can do what I need to do, so that your teacher can do what they need to do. So it is very much a bucket filler system, and we would not be where we're at without the support that I do get on a daily basis from Central. So thank you, Central Office, and a quick announcement.
Thank you again, AISD staff. We wanted to invite you this evening. I know you are all busy now, but we are having a concert and rally. We thought that was the perfect way to exemplify the Maplewood spirit at Cherrywood Coffee House from 5 to 8. So if anyone can make it, we'd love to have you there. Obviously, everyone else, we'd love to have you there to celebrate this amazing community. I'd also just like to mention that our trustee, our District 1 trustee, Ms. Hunter, is here, and she's been listening to the meeting. And she has offered to stick around as well and speak with families. And so she will be our advocate with the board, and we'll be working with them, with the district this evening. So she is definitely a resource as well. And then thank you for offering to stay around here as well.
And this is from us. All right, thank you, Maplewood.